Walk Beyond 2040, and welcome to a very special edition of the Progressive Rock and Metal Album Review Series. And today I am going to be taking a look at the amazing and impressive catalogue from one of the greatest and most important bands to ever burst onto the scene in the progressive rock genre in the last 30 plus years. And this band were a huge part of the resurgence for the prog rock scene back in the mid 1990s, and they are still going very strong to this day as we speak. And I've been a huge fan of this band for a really long time, and this is a band that I've been wanting to talk about on this series for quite a while. And I'm really excited to be discussing this band's entire catalogue of albums. And this is a band that's, quite frankly, in my opinion, needs no introduction whatsoever. I am talking about, of course, the one and only legendary American progressive rock band, Spock's Beard, and this is the fourth and final part of a four-part special where I am going to be discussing the entire catalogue of Spock's Beard. So for part one, I discussed all of the Spock's Beard Neal Morse albums, and for part two, I discussed all of the Spock's Beard Nick D'Virgilio albums, and for part three, I discussed all of the Spock's Beard Ted Leonard albums. And for today's special edition, which is the fourth and final part of this four-part special, I am going to be discussing all of the Spock's Beard official live albums. And as I mentioned already, I've been a huge fan of Spock's Beard for a really long time, and I've seen them live many times. And as impressive as Spock's Beard are in the studio, and trust me when I tell you, they are very impressive in the studio, I feel they're more impressive even live. I just feel they sound even better in a live setting. And there's something magical about a Spock's Beard live show because they bring so much energy and deliver so much power into their music. And some of my favourite Spock's Beard songs are the live versions because they really take their music to a new level, really stretch out their epics, lots of longer solos, top notch musicianship, incredible playing. And these guys always bring their A game every single night, and they're just all on top form. Everyone in Spock's Beard individually are an outstanding player, but when they're together live, there are very few bands out there that can touch or match Spock's Beard, in my opinion. And some of my favourite Spock's Beard albums are the live ones because there's just something so special about a Spock's Beard live performance. And when you hear them play, you really feel like you're with them and they take you on this unbelievable journey, and it's almost like you're witnessing an epic movie. You've stayed there from the beginning and you've been on this journey and you get to the third act and you just witness this incredible climax, and after the dust is settled you think, wow, that was an unbelievable ride. Holy cow, I'm out of gas. That was the most incredible thing I have ever seen. And that is what I feel like when I see Spock's Beard live. You know, it feels like I'm watching a epic movie because they just do so many incredible things that only a small handful of bands can do. And Spock's Beard, for my money, are up there with the Rushes, the Flower Kings, the Transatlantics, the Neal Morse bands, the Riversides, the Porcupine Trees, to name a few, as one of the best live bands out there. And as I said, I've seen them live many times and they never fail to disappoint me. So, as I said, I'm really looking forward to talking about Spock's Beard's live albums, which is a total of 8 live recordings. And as always, I'm going to be talking about each one individually, and I'll be choosing which one I think is the best one. This is going to be hard because all of these are excellent. Obviously, there are some that are, for my money, a little bit better than others, but they're all different. They all capture different points in the band's career, And any of these live albums could be a number one or an all-time favorite. They're all good, so well produced. You can't go wrong with a Spock's Beard live album. And if someone was to ask me, well, where's the best place I could start with Spock's Beard? Check out the live albums. There's some impressive stuff, and they really bring their A game, as I mentioned already. These guys know how to put on a live show, and as I said, some of my favourite Spock's Beard albums are the live ones. I just think they're just unbelievable, in my opinion. So we're going to start with the first live album, and this one came out in 1986, and this one is called The Beard Is Out There. So The Beard Is Out There is the first Spock's Beard live album, and it features mostly material from the band's debut recording, The Light, and there is a track which would end up on the band's second album, Beware the Darkness. So you're treated to an early version of that track before it was officially recorded. And Spock's Beard, when they originally recorded their debut album, The Lights, they were a four-piece band. And now Spock's Beard are a five-piece with the addition of keyboardist Ryo Okumotu. And for me, this was the birth of the classic Spock's Beard lineup. And these guys really bring their A game, as I said already. Top-notch musicianship, unbelievable playing, and all on fine musical form. And some of these tracks, they really extend it and just go in wild places that they wouldn't be able to on their studio albums. So we've got The Light, which is an excellent opener. Go the Way You Go is great. Thoughts, which ended up on Beware the Darkness. It's fun, it's weird, it's quirky, it's out there. Hearing all of the band members do those crazy harmonies, thoughts are taking, thoughts are screaming, for someone who has seen Spock's Beard do that a number of times, it never fails to blow me away. The way they all work together with their harmonies is just unbelievable. And then we've got The Water, which is like the longest track of this whole live album, which is like 23 minutes long. This is definitely the Neal Morse period of Spock's Beard for sure. Excellent track. And then we got On the Edge, which is great. And then we got a bonus track as well, Waste Away / Fire. Tremendous live album. For me, this is one of Spock's Beard's best live albums. It's very iconic, very important as well, and it really shows you just how good and impressive Spock's Beard are as a live band. I just think they sound absolutely incredible. Alan Morse ripping it up on guitar, Dave Meros rock solid on the bass, Nick D'Virgilio, tremendous drummer, Ryo Okumotu, an absolute powerhouse on the keyboards, and Neal Morse is Neal Morse. He is just so wild, full of energy, full of power, whether he's singing or playing guitars or playing keyboards. This guy is a one-man orchestra, and he is just pure dynamite, as are the entire band as well. I just think all of these guys as a band are just absolutely impressive. So the standouts for me are The Light, Thoughts, The Water, and Go the Way You Go. But the entire live album, top to bottom, is excellent. And for my money, one of the best Spock's Beard live albums ever. So there you have it. The Beard is out there. Tremendous start, and the cool thing about Spock's Beard as a live band, they were just warming up. Tremendous stuff. Great live album. So we move on to the next live album, and this one came out in 2000, and this one is called Don't Try This at Home. So by this point, now that there are a few albums in, Spock's Beard have already cemented himself as one of the premier progressive rock bands, and I'm not crapping on The Beard Is Out There. It sounds great, but I feel that with Don't Try This at Home, the production is much better. a lot more polished, a lot more up to date, and it's a great sounding live album. And it's got a lot of classic Spock Speed material that we all know and love. And it's just a great live performance. It really is. And you can really hear these guys at the top of their game, all at their best. Unbelievable musicianship, great playing, you name it, it's all there. And if you're a Spock Speed fan, this is definitely one to check out. It's just absolutely incredible. So we're just going to have a little quick look. So here are the guys, and some shots of performance. But this is a really good live album. I think this is equally as good as The Beard Is Out There, but I feel sounding wise, this has got much better production. So we've got Day for Night, which is a great opener. Mouth of Madness is excellent. Skin is great. Gibberish is one of my favourite Spock Speed tracks. June, for my money, the signature Spock Speed live track. You know, you always expect to hear this at any Spock Speed gig, or even at a Neal Morse solo gig. You know, I think it's a very gorgeous and lovely track, and they still play it a lot to this day. And no Spock Speed concert is ever truly complete without this track, because I feel that if I don't hear this track, then I probably went to the wrong show. But you'll never go home without hearing this track. It's probably their most iconic track ever. And we've got the closer, The Healing Colours of Sound, which is a great epic closer, top to bottom, great live performance and some great material as well. And the standouts for me are Day for Night, Gibberish, June, and The Healing Colours of Sound. Great live album, probably a little bit better than The Beard Is Out There, but they're both equally as good as each other. But I think Don't Try This at Home is maybe a little bit better for my money. So there you have it. Don't Try This at Home, an excellent Spock Speed live album. Tremendous stuff. So we move on to the next live album, and this one came out in 2005, and it's a double live album, and this one is called Gluttons for Punishment. So by this point, Neal Morse has already left Spock Speed to pursue a solo career, and Spock Speed's drummer, Nick D'Virgilio, is now the band's vocalist after replacing Neal Morse. And as the band's live drummer, we've got Jimmy Keegan, who would later on become a full-time member of Spock Speed. And I feel this is a really good live album. I think this is a very good one. I would probably say it is certainly as good as Don't Try This at Home, but I feel that this is just a bit more fuller, really packs a punch, lots of energy, some incredible drumming from both Keegan and D'Virgilio, and I really enjoyed this one a lot. You know, I've listened to all of the Spock Speed's live albums in preparation for the final part of this four-part special, and I really enjoyed this one a lot. I think this was so good, and some of the music just is brought to life. It's just such a great live album. Nick D'Virgilio, both vocally and musically, he's just on fire. Jimmy Keegan is a powerhouse on the drums. Ryo Okumotu, he's like a one-man keyboard orchestra on the keyboards. Dave Meros, rock solid on bass. And Alan Morse, he knows how to rip it up on guitar. And the thing about Alan Morse, when you listen to all of the Spock Speed albums, especially the live ones, you realize just how important his guitar playing is to the Spock Speed sound. Now, I'm sure a lot of other guitarists can do probably as good a job as him, but I don't think Spock Speed would sound like Spock Speed without his guitar playing. He's an incredible guitar player, criminally underrated, and I don't think he gets enough love for just how good he really is. And he's on top form on all of his live albums. So, as I mentioned already, this is a double live album, and it's got mostly a lot of the material from the Spock's Beard, Nick D'Virgilio albums, but there's also some classic tracks from the Neal Morse period of Spock's Beard. So let's have a quick look. There we go. So there's a little bit about the live performance. There's shots of the band playing live. There's the guys. Some cool shots there. And we've got like the credits and production notes. But yeah, this is really good. I really thought this was probably one of their strongest live albums. And, you know, I did say before, back in part two, I felt that the first two Spock's Beard Nick D'Virgilio albums, they were okay, but maybe a little bit weak. But I felt that the last two Spock's Beard albums with Nick D'Virgilio before he left, I thought they were really good. And it really shows here. And this is some great playing. And I feel some of those tracks from those albums sound better live, in my honest opinion. So obviously we got the intro, and then we've got the big 7-part epic called A Flash Before My Eyes, which for me is probably the highlight of this entire double live album. So we've got the ballet of the impact, I Wouldn't Let It Go, surfing down the avalanche, She Is Everything, climbing up that hill, and letting go. Tremendous stuff. And one thing about Spock's Beard, you know, that I like it when they do these big long epics and these multiple parts that make up this gigantic suite. Just tremendous stuff. And then we've got Of the Beauty of It All, which is great. Harm's Way is absolutely beautiful, one of my favourite tracks. And NWC, which is great. And then on disc 2, we got At the End of the Day, which is excellent. The Bottom Line is great. Ryo's solo, what more can you say? The guy is an absolute beast on the keyboards. Ghosts of Autumn is great. As Long as We Ride is great. And then, of course, we got the epic closer from Spock's Beard's debut album, The Light. Another classic and signature track of Spock's Beard. So, standouts for me, A Flash Before My Eyes, parts 1 to 7 is tremendous. Harm's Way and NWC. And then on disc 2, Ghosts of Autumn, As Long as We Ride, and The Light, and At the End of the Day. Tremendous live album, absolutely brilliant. One of my favourites from Spock's Beard's live catalogue. So there you have it. Gluttons for Punishment, absolutely fantastic Spock's Beard live album, and one of my favourites. Absolutely love this one so much. So we move on to the next live album, and this one came out in 2008, and it's a double live album, and this one is simply called Live. So this features a lot of material from Spock's Beard's self-titled album, which I felt was one of the band's best with Nick D'Virgilio, and a lot of that material is featured on here, and it's just absolutely fantastic. I think this is another great Spock's Beard live album and another favourite of mine, and I just think it sounds absolutely incredible. Everyone here is at the top of their game, and Nick D'Virgilio, he is just on amazing form, whether he's playing drums or singing, playing keyboards or guitars. Just like Neal Morse, Nick D'Virgilio is a super talented musician who can do it all. Jimmy Keegan is a monster on the drums. Alan Morse is burning it up on guitars. Dave Meros, lots of dirty and funky bass work, and Ryo Okumotu, a real keyboard whiz. Everyone, an amazing player, in my opinion, and this is such a good live album, equally as good as Gluttons for Punishment and Don't Try This at Home and The Beard Is Out There. I think this is right up there at the top as one of the band's best live albums, and I love it. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. So we'll just get a quick look. So there is a full breakdown of each track from what album it came from. There's the guys. Yeah, so cool. Everyone just really ripping it up. There we are. And got the credits and production notes as well. Just Spock Speed having a good time, as always. There we go. Excellent double live album, and another one that I really enjoyed very, very much. So, on disc one, we got the intro, and then we got On a Perfect Day, which is one of the best Spock's Beard songs ever. In the Mouth of Madness is great. Crack the Big Sky is great. The slow crash landing man is great. Return to Whatever is great. Surfing Down the Avalanche is great. Fault Part 2 is great. And we've got the drum duel, which harkens back to what Genesis used to do during their shows with Phil Collins and Chester Thompson, or sometimes Phil Collins and Bill Bruford. Kind of reminds me of that. Impressive stuff. Skeletons at the Feast is great. And then on disc 2, we got Walking on the Wind is great. Hereafter, which is a great Ryo keyboard solo. And then we've got a 4-part epic, As Far as the Mind Can See. Part 1, Dreaming in the Age of Answers. And then we got Here's a Man, which is part 2. And then we got part 3, They Know We Know. And then part 4, Stream of Unconsciousness. For me, that's the highlight of this entire live album, that 4-part epic. Excellent stuff. And then we got Rearranged, which is great. And then we got a nice medley of The Water. And then Go the Way You Go, which is a great closer. So standouts for me on disc 1 are On a Perfect Day, In the Mouth of Madness, Crack the Big Sky, Thoughts Part 2, Drum Duel, and Skeletons at the Feast. And then the standouts on Part 2, Walking on the Wind, and the 4-part epic As Far as the Mind Can See, which is excellent, and Go the Way You Go. Just overall, top to bottom, a tremendous double live album from Spock's Beard. So there you have it. Live, excellent double live album, and another one I enjoyed very much. Love it. So we move on to the next live album, and this one came out in 2011, and this one is called Live at High Voltage Festival. So by this point, Nick D'Virgilio has already left Spock's Beard, so this leaves only Ryo Okumotu, Dave Meros, and Alan Morse as the only official Spock's Beard members. And we've got Jimmy Keegan, who was the band's live drummer for a number of years. He's handling the drum duties. And we've got Ted Leonard from Enchant, who was more or less a special guest and sitting in with Spock's Beard. Ted Leonard and Jimmy Keegan would both go on to replace Nick D'Virgilio as official members of Spock's Beard. And we've also got a special guest appearance from former Spock's Beard member Neal Morse. So there's only 5 tracks, and I was there for this live performance. High Voltage was in London, and it was a tremendous live show. Very hot day. I remember it very, very well, and it was a long time ago. Seems like forever when I saw that live performance, but very enjoyable. And this live concert was only 48 minutes, but they packed a lot of material on this live album, and I'm glad I got to be part of this. I'm glad I got to witness this. So we got On a Perfect Day, excellent track, and then we got The Doorway, which is great. The Emperor's Clothes is excellent, and then we got the classic The Lights is another great track as well, and then we got the closer June, which features Neal Morse, the signature Spock's Beard track. Overall, top to bottom, excellent live performance, and it's a fun live album, you know, very enjoyable. And, you know, hearing Ted Leonard and Neal Morse together, it's quite a nice treat. And, you know, Ted Leonard is a great singer, and just like Neal Morse, very multi talented as well. Everyone's at the top of their game, and it's just a really good, energetic live performance. And the standouts for me are On a Perfect Day, The Light, and June. What more can you say, really? Great live album. So there you have it. Live at High Voltage Festival. Really good, fun live album. A little bit short. As I said, it's only like 48 minutes long in total, but still very good stuff. So there you have it. Live at High Voltage Festival. Love it. So we move on to the next live album, and this one came out in 2012, and it's a triple disc live album, two CDs and one DVD, and this one is called The X Tour Live. So the X Studio album would mark the final Spock's Beard album to feature Nick D'Virgilio, and this is a live performance from that tour, and it features lots of material from that album as well as some classic Spock's Beard songs as well. And I really enjoyed this one a lot. And in all honesty, I really enjoyed the Spock's Beard Nick D'Virgilio live albums. I think they had a lot of energy, a lot of power, and I felt they were the most memorable out of all of the Spock's Beard live albums. I think there's just something about them. They just sounded really good. And as I said, those last two studio albums that Spock's Beard made with Nick D'Virgilio, I thought they were their best ones they made with him. And it really shows here on these live albums. I just think they were just really good. And those songs are really brought to life on these live albums. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed those live albums a lot. So we're just going to have a quick look. So there is all the credits and production notes. There's the tracks from the set list. There's who plays on what. So we got a guest appearance from Stan Osmos, who's featured on one track playing guitar, and he's more like a studio musician. He's worked with Spock's Beard a lot over the years. And all the credits here as well. And there we go. And there's the guys. But yeah, it's a very good live album. As I said, really enjoyed this one a lot. So we got Edge of the In-Between, which is a great opener. The Emperor's Clothes is excellent. From the Darkness, which is like 17 minutes long. Excellent track. The Quiet House is great. The Man Behind the Curtain is excellent. Kamikaze is great. Jaws of Heaven is brilliant. And then on disc 2 we got Drum Duel between Jimmy Keegan and Nick D'Virgilio. On a Perfect Day is excellent. The Quirky Thoughts, never get tired of hearing that track. Ryo solo is great. And The Doorway and the iconic signature Spock's Beard tune, June. Excellent stuff. And the standouts for me on disc 1 are Edge of the In-Between, From the Darkness, The Man Behind the Curtain, Jaws of Heaven. Disc 2 standouts for me are Drum Drill, On a Perfect Day, Ryo Solo, and June and The Doorway. Great live album from top to bottom. Just tremendous stuff. Lots of energy, lots of power, great musicianship. Nick D'Virgilio on top form, playing keyboards, guitars, drums, and vocals. Jimmy Keegan, a tremendous drummer. He works really well with Nick D'Virgilio. I love hearing those two do their little drum drill. You know, I just love hearing those two really working it together. Dave Meros, Alan Morse, and Ryo Okumotu, just all on tremendous form as always. Just absolutely love this band, and they just sound incredible live. So there you have it, the X Tour Live. A tremendous triple disc live album, really enjoyable, definitely worth getting just for the DVD itself, but the two audio discs are just as good. Highly recommended. Love this live album. Really enjoyed this one a lot. Love it. So we move on to the next live album, and this one came out in 2017, and it's a 4 disc live album, 2 CDs and 2 DVDs. And for me, this could very well be the most important Spock Speed live album, and this one is called Snow. So, just like in the name, Snow was a studio album that Spock Speed recorded, and it would mark Neal Morse's final one with the band as he would leave to pursue a solo career. And Snow was a double concept album, and it was never toured or played live until years after. And this sees Neal Morse returning to play with his former bandmates for this special live show, playing all of Snow in its entirety. And we also have the return of Nick D'Virgilio as well. So this live performance features everyone who has ever played with Spock's Beard. So we got Alan Morse, Neal Morse, Nick D'Virgilio, Jimmy Keegan, Ted Leonard, Dave Meros, and Ryo Okumotu. So pretty much everyone who has ever played with Spock's Beard all coming together to deliver this amazing special live performance of perhaps Spock's Beard's most important studio album. Tremendous live performance, incredibly long, but very enjoyable. And it almost plays out like a play. You know, there's all different characters, lots of different parts, lots of different, changes as well. It's almost like watching a stage play, and it's just absolutely excellent, top to bottom. For my money, this is probably Spock's Beard's best live album, and what a true union! Everyone who's ever played in the band all together. It's just magic, just absolutely magic. So we got all three Spock's Beard vocalists, you know, both drummers, guitarist, keyboardist, bassist. They're all here. Wow, truly a monumental moment in Spock Speed's history. To have all of these guys together playing their most important album, and as impressive as the studio album is, Snow sounds even better live. There's so much energy, so much power. I say that quite a lot here, but I mean that. There's so much going on with this album. It really is. And I won't really say which standout track for me on this live album. The whole thing is just tremendous. It's just a tremendous live album. 2 CDs, 2 DVDs. Doesn't get any better than that. I just think this is absolutely incredible and probably Spock Speed's greatest achievement as a live band, in my opinion. But I do love some of these tracks, Welcome to New York City, Overture, Love Beyond Words, Devil's Got My Throat. They're all great. Second Overture, 4th of July, they're all great tracks as well. Open Wide the Floodgates, you got Open the Gates Part 2. They're all great tracks. And on disc 2, Devil's Got My Throat Reprise, Snow's Night Out, I'm Dying, Freak Boy Part 2, and Looking for Answers, I Will Go, Made Alive Again, and Falling Forever, and Wind at My Back. But just so many great songs and such a memorable live performance. So there you have it, Snow live. For my money, the greatest Spock Speed live album ever. Love it. So we move on to the next live album, and this one came out in 2018, and it's more or less like an EP, and it's live in the studio, and this one is called Live at Sweetwater Studios. So this was more or less like a demonstration put together for students, showing them how an album is made in the studio, and it sounds excellent. The production is great, and we've got Nick D'Virgilio back in the fold once again, and very enjoyable. Although it's only 3 tracks, but still really good. So we've got Hiding Out, On a Perfect Way, and Go the Way You Go. Just really good stuff. Although only 3 tracks, very enjoyable. nonetheless. And Stand Out for me is On a Perfect Day and Go the Way You Go. But all of it is excellent stuff. I think this is a very good live album, even though it's only live in the studio, but it works out more or less as an EP, in my opinion. So there you have it, live at Sweetwater Studios. Excellent album, bit on the short side, but still a very enjoyable live recording nonetheless. Love it. So, which Spock's Beard live album do I think is the best one? Well, personally, I think all of them are excellent. There's no bad live albums. Obviously, there are a few that I feel are a little bit better than others, but you can't go wrong with any of these Spock's Beard live albums. They're all great, they're all different, but it's still classic Spock's Beard, in my opinion. But if I had to choose one, which I think is the best Spock's Beard live album, it's easily got to be Snow Live, because Snow Live to me, we had every single Spock Speed member on stage together playing the entire Snow double album in its entirety. Just a monumental moment and probably the band's greatest achievements in their whole history. And, as I said, got all three vocalists, both drummers, and the core of the band. Doesn't get any better than that. It's just a tremendous Spock's Beard live album, two CDs, two DVDs, just absolute magic in my opinion, and for my money, the best Spock's Beard live album ever. So there you have it, Snow Live, the one that I consider to be the best Spock's Beard live album of all time. Absolutely classic stuff and the band's greatest achievement in my opinion. Love it. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite Spock's Beard live album? Is it The Beard Is Out There, Don't Try This at Home, Gluttons for Punishment, Live, Live at High Voltage Festival, The X2 Live, or Snow Live, or Live at Sweetwater Studios? There's no right or wrong answer. We all have our favourite live albums. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Progressive Rock and Metal album review series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.